to watch this either right now or later, happy birthday. We are continuing
Happy birthday, Mandy.
our Irish week. Today we will be talking about director Jim Sheridan, who was is, he's still alive.
Was.
Yes. Was.
Did he change careers?
Irish director, screenwriter, playwright, producer. But while I get us shared, Samir, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. What day is it? Just kidding.
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. It feels like I'm already lost the sense of time and day after so long inside. But there's a chance I may be able to, if I can get an appointment, I might be able to get vaccinated soon. I'm very excited about that. Because I want to go to a freaking movie theater again. That's like the first trip I'm doing. I'm like, I ordered plenty of food from local restaurants delivered here, so they're good as far as I'm concerned.
Them.
Movie theaters is the place I'm gonna buy, and I'm like, if there's a concession stand open, I'm like, give me the big popcorn.
Oh yeah.
With like an extra gallon jug of the butter, and then all of your Sour Patch Kids to like put on my popcorn, which people think is insane, until you're stoned and you eat it yourself. And then it's magic.
Yeah, my dad and I definitely have plans to go to the movies and buy all the food and get some drinks. Our local theater has some alcohol.
Ice cream.
We're gonna get a few drinks. We're gonna do everything. Yes.
Oh, maybe if the Alamo Draft House opens and they probably won't be doing food delivery anymore inside the theater. But it would be the perfect time to do it, because if you can only open to 15 or 25% capacity, I'm like, you know what? You can leave it 5 seats down over there. I'll just walk over and get it, because I won't be passing anybody or blocking their view to get it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like I would kill for one of those boozy milkshakes that they make. Oof. I mean, like I haven't indulged in enough sinfully delicious things to get by. But that is like where my mind is actually. I'm like, oh, I'll find that appointment, and I'm gonna figure out which movie I'm gonna see first in the theater after year. Better be a good one. Is the Castro Theater open? Do they have a classic? My mind is doing that today.
Some people
so I'm good.
Oh, I could finally hug my grandma again, and we're like, we want to go to the movies.
I'm like, well, my grandparents are all dead, so my hugs are all virtual with grandparents at this point. That's just not a choice, unfortunately. But hugging other people, yes, definitely. Yes, that goes without saying.
Well, I got my Book Club for Movies t-shirt yesterday. I show this off.
Woohoo!
I'm pretty happy with the print quality on this. Again, this is available on... you can get a black version, you can get a white version, and it's probably going to show up better on black with it. You can get hoodies and everything else. And I did get my coffee mug, which I got on white. I'm probably going to get another one on black, so it'll pop more.
Yeah.
But trying it out. But if that's something you guys want, I would probably recommend getting the black one for that. And black's more like cinematic and artsy. So
it is, yes. Everything pops against a black backdrop.
It does. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of our broadcast, it's Director Tuesday. We will be talking about Irish director Jim Sheridan. But before that, let's talk about yesterday's film. Yesterday for Man Crush Monday, we talked about Cillian Murphy, and this was his Golden Globe nominated performance in Breakfast on Pluto from 2005, directed by Neil Jordan, another prominent Irish director. And actually, he and Jim Sheridan know each other. Everyone in the Irish film community knows each other.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of you said it yesterday, you'll see a bunch of people that are sort of, there's almost like an unofficial repertory for Neil Jordan films and for a lot of these Irish directors. So you'll see a lot of the same actors in a lot of these movies because of that. Cillian Murphy is I love him in this movie. Actually, I was curious how I would feel. But I felt like there was no it wasn't a mincing stereotype. It was a real character that he developed. But I think the story tells everything. It sticks to a really simple format. It's almost like a diary.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that simple format, it made this whole, because it's the story itself is, it's sort of a series of snippets of life that sort of coalesce into a actually functioning narrative of this person's journey.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like it shouldn't work when you chop it up into bits like that and give a little like title card, like this is chapter 10, this is chapter 11 kind of thing. Usually that kind of thing bugs me. But I actually really appreciated in this movie. It just felt a little bit more true to life as it's experienced, as opposed to like perfectly ordered for a movie, even though there's obvious movie moments that you can only get in a movie. Like that opening shot, like following like when he's dropped off or they are dropped off on a doorstep, and it's this crazy like free-wielding, I don't know if it looks like it's a crane shot, but sometimes it seems almost like it's floating on something because it's maneuvering in ways that I'm like, I don't know if a crane, you can really operate a crane to do everything that this shot does, because it looks so complicated and it's flying over this and that, and it's an amazing thing. I'm like, oh, what a perfect way to begin a movie, because the movie is about a character who completely stands out, and for that community doesn't make sense to anyone else in the community, and here's this shot that seems to defy the laws of space and movement to follow this character, and it's like a perfect way to introduce you to this character. But I was like, I loved how organically they weaved in the stories of like Irish resistance and the conflicts going on that were really bubbling at the time politically is a part of this story, and it's not just treated like a backdrop. It's not treated just like something that happened and we're not, doesn't have any effect on this person. I really like that. It reminded me of I'm like, oh, I felt like I watched it again for the first time and I fell in love with it all over again.
Yeah, it had been so long since I'd seen it that there was very little that I had remembered from it. So it was almost like I was watching it for the first time. Again, definitely enjoyed seeing a bunch of other Irish actors in this, like Brendan Gleeson, Dominic Cooper, who's not Irish, but he needed a bigger part. Okay, he was in it for like one scene.
I know, I forgot he was in it too.
I know, and having it been so long, I thought like, oh yeah, Dominic Cooper, and then it's just like, did he die? it's like
probably,
yeah,
probably, because we never see him again.
Ruth Negga, who is here on the poster, I didn't realize that she was in this. She was nominated a few years ago. I think she got nominated for Best Actress.
For Loving.
Yeah, for Loving, which is really good. She's actually, we almost talked about her this week for our Woman Crush Wednesday, so maybe we'll do a day on her at some point. Yeah, but Cillian Murphy, this was just, I mean, given that the last thing I had been watching him in was Peaky Blinders, just a complete 180. I mean, you could just take those two roles alone, let alone all these other amazing things that he's done, just to show the incredible range that he has, and just his willingness to go to either extreme. And in Peaky Blinders, he's always just like beating the crap out of people, and I don't know. And then here, I mean, there's so much I read about yesterday where he did so much to like really work on raising the pitch of his voice, and how that was like such a struggle for him to get to that. But this character was just like just, I don't even know how to describe this character. Just like, you just want to be friends with this person. Like, this person's just like lovely and fun, and it's like just trying to enjoy life. And among, like she keeps saying like, oh, like everything's so serious. Everyone keeps saying that, like, there's that word again, serious. And she was just trying to bring joy to other people's lives. And granted, there was a lot of bad things going on.
Well, also just to find their own, there's a sense that this character, even from a young age, like knew exactly in a way who they were, and nobody else would let them be who they were. And so there's a constant struggle for that. And then anybody who, the sources of support for them come from places you don't expect throughout the movie. Like I loved the moment when her friend came in and pulled her out of that magic show.
Mm-hmm.
Just like somebody understood why that was, even though there was like a burgeoning love interest there, that person realized that this was not good for their friend and pulled them out of it. But also the policeman, like there's something
Also,
about the character that charms everybody.
Professor
It's that
Quirrell.
resoluteness.
Professor Quirrell was in this.
Professor Quirrell or Professor Moody?
Both of them.
Where was Professor Quirrell?
He was the bad cop. It took me a while to recognize him.
But they both kind of become good cops by the end of that, so there is no bad cop
the guy
anymore.
with the mustache. The guy with the shaved head and the mustache. Yeah. No, because I was like, where do I know him from? I looked it up, I was like, oh yeah, it's Professor Quirrell. Yeah. So we had 2 Harry Potter professors in this.
Ian, welcome. Thank you for joining. I would love to hear. I can't remember what movie that is, though. Is that the movie that we decided not to do for our fantasy day, Amy? Because originally, Ian, we had
like 3 Neil Jordan.
We had like we were like, oh, this movie, and then we're like, who's the director? And it was like Neil Jordan, and we're like, okay, we got to diversify this a little bit. So let's get some other Irish filmmakers in here.
Let us know what movie that is. But
if you remember the title of that, please share it in the comments, because I will definitely add that to my list, because I really like Neil Jordan. And this movie, I just validated that feeling for me.
It was great. The Butcher Boy.
Oh, yes. That's a good movie. Okay, now I know.
We are Harry Potter nerds.
We are Harry Potter nerds. I noticed Brendan.
Problematic now, but we are big Harry Potter nerds.
We like the stories. A lot of people resonated with the story of Harry Potter, so we don't need to defend that character and people's identification with the struggles of characters in any literature, really, unless, the literature itself is actively trying to harm you in some way. So, we're nerds. It happens. I used to work in a bookstore. It was a bookstore thing, You can't escape working in a bookstore without some knowledge of Harry Potter, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen, because you're going to have to answer lots of kids' questions. I learned.
I'm a Gryffindor. I'm a Gryffindor.
Oh, because you're so brave. Brave and true, Amy.
Outgoing. Anywho, please watch Breakfast on Pluto, especially if you are a Cillian Murphy fan. It's available right now on Prime. Really fun too.
About the representation of trans characters, though, because we really should talk about that before we move on from it, because that is a big part of this story. They actually were, just before the world shut down due to the pandemic, there was a controversy over a stage adaptation of this book. Ooh. So when this movie was made, it was, it's not okay, but the general consensus was, I don't think much was done in the way of trying to cast actual trans actors in this role. But the role also, the majority of the story is, or not the majority, but a lot of the story is them sort of showing themselves, not living that life, like before that and after it. So there's a lot to be asked of trans actors to sort of play their dead named self in a way on screen, but they're actors, so you can play any character, and so that's how you can work yourself around it that way. But as far as directors, I don't think the film industry has really worked out exactly how to handle trans stories and how to reach out to the community and how to try to cast people from that community to tell, to portray people from their community on film or TV. But when this play came out, it's like the play is 2020, this movie is 2005. They apparently did try to cast a trans actor to play this character in the play, and they had already cast a trans actor as in the role of the character's mother, and they apparently ended up casting a cisgendered heterosexual male. I think maybe, I can't remember. I should have looked up the name, because the name was like Free or Fra Fee. Like the first name was Fra, the last name was Fee or something. It was hard, so there was a controversy about the fact that they cast a cishet person in this role, and the actor who had been cast as the mother, they left the production in protest. Because they said that, it's unconscionable that you have this character not being played by a trans actor. And then the producers were very much like, no, we really committed to finding a trans actor with there were certain skills, because I think it was a musical, but it was like there were certain things that you couldn't do without. So if it's a musical, the actor has to be able to sing. And so if none of the people who try out can sing, then they can't choose any of those actors. So I think there was some things like that with it, but it came off so terribly because you're like, hey, we're in a day and age where you should have worked more to figure this out. And that was what the other actors' idea was. So there was a lot going into this movie, like watching it now, where it was like, well, how is this portrayal going to be? I think that it was a very respectful way to do this role, because part of the story is a lot of this character telling people, don't call me Patrick, don't call me Patrick. Basically saying, don't dead name me. And it's not, I was like, oh, okay, so they got elements of this person's life that seemed authentic. And the portrayal, I felt, was sensitive and not reliant on stereotypes. So I do think that this movie stands the test of time in that regard. Even if it would have been nicer to have a trans actor playing the role. Wanted to put that out there before we move away from it, because now that I fished out the DVD of this, it's going to get a couple more rewatches this year. It's because it was that good. But sorry, now we can move on.
Now we're gonna watch it. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the insight with that. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, not that I'm necessarily one to offer my opinion on such things, but I felt like it was pretty respectful. Even given that it was a straight man playing this role. Yeah,
so
Breakfast on Pluto, available on Prime. Let's move on to director Jim Sheridan. Oh, Jim Sheridan. Jim Sheridan. Sheridan seems like that'd be Jim Sheridan. Jim Sheridan was born February 6, 1949 in Dublin. He didn't really make his first film until 1989. He was 40, but his first film was a big one, My Left Foot.
Big time.
Yeah. Frequent collaborator with Daniel Day-Lewis, who, of course, he won his first Oscar for that film. Jim Sheridan was nominated for Best Director and I think Best Screenplay. But before that, he had moved from Ireland to the U.S., was kind of struggling there for a while. He ran a Irish Arts Center for a little bit. He was involved in theater for a long time, had written some plays, but again, didn't make his first actual film until he was 40 years old with My Left Foot. Luke, if you want to add in some info, let me know, because I couldn't find a whole lot of.
Yes, please share. Maybe he had time to look for only a little bit.
He has made several films that have to do, actually really the majority of his films, that have to do with Ireland and Irish people, Irish history, Irish struggles. His second film was one that we actually had almost picked, The Field. The Field was his second film, and that one had, gonna forget. I'm so bad with names. This is absurd. Sean Bean was in it, but he wasn't the main guy. Richard Harris. Got it before you even had to look.
There you go.
Harris was in it. Richard Harris was nominated. We still are really interested in watching that film. His third film, In the Name of the Father, was another big commercial success and was nominated for a ton of Oscars. That is the film that we picked for today. He went on to collaborate many more times with Daniel Day-Lewis. Another one of his big Irish films was In America in 2002. He then surprised everyone by directing Get Rich or Die Trying, the 50 Cent movie. Yeah, which people were like, oh, okay, this is very non-Irish here. But even Roger Ebert thought that it was like had some substance to it, even though that movie I don't think did very well. Yes, as Luke mentioned, he did Brothers as well, and since then, looks like he's kind of gone back to some Irish films a little bit. He is very selective with what he chooses to work on. I mean, in 30 years, he's made he's directed 15 things. Some of those were short films. One was he has done some documentaries too. But he writes everything that he does.
Very self-sufficient artist. Works with the same actors a lot.
Lots of Irish actors. Again, it's a very tight-knit group.
And we kind of were torn. What movie you were saying? Like we were like, oh, should we do My Left Foot? You didn't want to watch My Left Foot. So we were like, maybe we should do The Field because it's so interesting and strange, and it seems classically like naturally Irish. Or
we were interested because that one was one. It's based on a play that he didn't write, but we were like, okay, well, it's a play, and we're always so curious to watch these play adaptations to film because a lot of them tend to be very contained. And it's like, well, here's one. It's like they're outside, they're in a field. So we still want to watch.
But that. It was almost impossible to find streaming anywhere. I can't remember if we did find it or not.
It was available to rent. Yeah, but ultimately, In the Name of the Father.
But it was only available to rent in like one place or something. It was in one weird or something. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, it was like it would have been one of those. I don't know why we ended up not choosing it. Better to focus Irish Week because people talk about, this week it's always St. Patrick's Day and just that stuff. And I'm like, well, nobody ever really talks about Irish history, and there's a lot to talk about there, and filmmakers have been talking about it. Filmmakers from that country have been talking about it. So why not feature a film that does that? Maybe we could all learn a little something, at least emotionally speaking, in terms of what it's like to be in that situation, even if because the people will always contest, like, this exact thing didn't happen the way it showed in that movie. And I'm like, okay, well, are you also familiar how to tell a story on a movie screen?
Yeah, and with that in mind, In the Name of the Father was criticized a little bit because it took so many creative liberties with the story. But ultimately, sometimes it comes down to like what's going to be more, a film. Everything's always dramatized. It's not a documentary. But Jim Sheridan was nominated for 6 Oscars. That ranges from director, writing, and producing. He also is. I think he has 4 daughters, and a couple of them, I think, are filmmakers as well. So and fun little Irish filmmaking family here. Old Jim Sheridan.
I love this picture you've chosen. He just looks so like.
Yeah, I like that one. Let's talk about In the Name of the Father. Came out in 1993. A man's coerced confession to an IRA bombing he did not commit results in the imprisonment of his father as well. An English lawyer fights to free them. This is based on an autobiographical book called Proved Innocent. But like I said, it definitely takes a lot of creative liberties with it. Daniel Day-Lewis was in this. He was nominated. Emma Thompson plays, I'm assuming, the British lawyer. Pete Postlethwaite, I think that's how you say his name. Postlethwaite. He was in this. I think that this was. One more time.
It's Thwaite. It's Pete Postlethwaite.
Postlethwaite. Pete Postlethwaite. That's fun to say. This is nominated for a bunch of Oscars. Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor for Pete Postlethwaite. Best Supporting Actress for Emma Thompson, Best Director Jim Sheridan, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Film Editing. It won nothing out of all of that. I was reading some of the trivia about this movie, and I have like a love-hate relationship with Daniel Day-Lewis. Like, I acknowledge that he's good. Okay? I think everyone, like, he's won so many Oscars. Like, he's good. He certainly commits. You know, he's a legendary method actor, but like some of this stuff too, just like I just don't know how much of this is truly necessary. Okay, so Daniel Day-Lewis, he kept his Northern Irish accent on and off the set for the entire shooting schedule. So that's one thing. But this is what really got me. In preparation for his role, Daniel Day-Lewis lost 30 pounds and spent nights in the jail cell on the set as crew members threw water and verbal abuse at him.
I don't know. I don't think that's, I don't know. Maybe I just know a lot of actors, but
I mean,
it sounds like somebody who wanted to understand what it was like to be in that situation as opposed to just trying to pretend that they knew when they got on set. Because can you imagine how bad the performance would have been if you had 0 reference points as a human being for what the situation your character is going through is? Like, if you have, like, your performance is just going to be shit. I'm sorry. That's just the reality of it. You have to do something to understand it, and just reading a few articles isn't enough. So I appreciate that he put in the extra effort to understand that on a level, on a deeper level than a surface level. So that it's the thing, the method acting thing, like that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. What really bothers me is stuff like when that idiot who played the Joker in Suicide Squad sent dead rats to people in packages because he was trying to get into character to play the Joker. That shit is unforgivable and inexcusable.
I didn't know about that one.
Maybe asking the crew to do a little extra work that I hope that their union made sure they got paid for, by the way. Because I'm like, you know what? If he wants them to do that after hours and they're done filming and he's spending the night on the set, you better hope, I hope he realizes that those people should be paid overtime.
I know. Otherwise, they'd really be yelling with him. Sheridan has collaborated with U2 a lot, and actually Bono was almost a character in this movie, but it conflicted with their tour schedule.
I was like, what other schedule could it be except that, oh, we're on another worldwide tour that's making billions of dollars. I can't make it to your movie set, Jim.
Mel Gibson and Liam Neeson were considered for the role that Daniel Day-Lewis got.
Mel Gibson.
He's not even Irish, is he? Isn't he Australian? Or no? He just filmed.
And the movie he's famous for is about Scottish people.
Yeah. I don't know why I kept thinking he was Australian, but that's just because they filmed Mad Max in Australia. That's why.
I think he actually is Australian.
I'm looking stuff right now.
Who knows? All I know is that he's a Catholic bigot, and he's like a crazy Catholic, like the kind of Catholic that doesn't recognize Vatican II Catholic. He's like really intense Catholic.
Born in New York. Oh, his mother is Irish. Okay.
Oh, there you go. So there is some.
Okay. He is of Irish descent. I'll give him that. But
so then he was, you know, I don't know. Well, maybe he would have been okay, but I just never.
You guys are saying he's Australian.
I see him as an action film star more than like an actor. Even though he was beautiful when he was young, but now I can't watch his movies anymore.
He lived in Australia for quite a while.
There we go. I was like, he was definitely there for a while. He didn't just like hop over to do a film and come back.
He was like 4 years old, but he was born in New York. His parents are Irish.
Right, exactly, Walter. Braveheart.
Yes,
but
that's what we think.
But I'm glad he did not get cast in this movie. I'm very glad.
We're not even seeing this movie. We're just glad that Mel Gibson isn't in it. Yeah, I'm really curious to watch this film. I know that talking about, I mean, the IRA is a huge part of more recent Irish history, you know, the last like 30, 40 years or so. But I don't know. It's just it's a violent side of Ireland that I'm glad that's, I don't know, maybe a little bit of it's still going on. But I don't know. Maybe we'll all learn a little bit more about what's going on.
Okay, you are back. For a second, I saw the signal just drop out. So there. But no, they were in existence for a while because they were part of the first, like, you know, rebellion for independence and Irish unity back in like the early part of the 19th century, and it was just that it came back into vogue again in the like 60s through the 90s, and you know, we saw a lot of really violent activity. I think we actually talked about some of it when we were talking about horror movies back in October, because we were talking about The Omen, and some of the things that happened during the filming of The Omen was that the hotel that the cast was going to stay in was a victim of an IRA bombing, and they did go to a different hotel, and then they were going to go out to dinner, and the restaurant they were going to was hit by an IRA bombing. At that time, this was in London, so it was, you know, there's a lot of things going on in this period. So there's obviously a lot of movies and stories told by Irish artists about those periods in particular, because it was also, you know, a renaissance of all sorts of other cultural and freedoms, and freedom to think differently and live differently was sort of coming out of that era. And, you know, Irish people would like to have a, you know, unified country instead of have a portion of it at the north that belongs to another one. And there's a lot of stuff that we just don't, like, they don't teach that, really, a lot of that in high school.
Barely.
Do you remember them talking about that in any depth in our high schools?
It might have been like a paragraph or something.
Yeah. Like, we know so little
about it. I've learned from watching movies.
And then looking up the story to find the real story.
Yeah. So like I said, this movie was criticized a little bit, especially by the man who wrote the book this is based on. He kind of even like stepped back a little bit from being involved in this movie once he saw it, because he was just like, it's very different. So, you know, take it as you will. If anything, I think I'm watching a Mel Gibson comment here.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, I could understand some of what you're saying, Fraser, but there's also the fact that he frequently spouts anti-Semitism and sexist drivel at people, and that is something I can't just look past. I do have to.
I do enjoy a few of his films, in particular, Apocalypto. I think that movie is just like incredible with the amount of work that went into that in detail. So I know Samir and I definitely disagree on that.
I think it's an entertaining film.
I don't remember what the context was, but he made some comment along the lines of like, he's glad that John Lennon was dead. And I was like, that's unnecessary. Let's not bring John Lennon into this, who I like worship.
Yeah, what is his problem with John Lennon? John Lennon wrote a song about Bloody Sunday, for goodness sake.
It was just I don't remember what the context was. It was just so weird. And I was like, why? Why? I don't know. Yeah. So, he's just someone.
Lots of conflicting emotions when it comes to that.
We will be doing a Mel Gibson special on our show.
But it's interesting to have that come up, because it's not something I thought we would talk about when we were talking about this movie, because I didn't even know that he was in consideration for this movie. Yeah. Liam Neeson makes more sense. Plus, he hates the English for reasons. Well, you know what? The English did create what's known as what they called the Empire of the Sun. So there are people all over this world who I think have complicated feelings about the nation of England. So you know what? That in itself doesn't make him the worst person, but he has other stuff, like you said. His other opinions in terms of who is worthy of being treated like a human being and who is not are, you know, there's some major problems he needs to work out there. And then there was, you know, the fact that he was drunk driving and called the cops sugar tits. I mean, that was.
Forgot about that one.
You don't remember that? Oh my God! That was the thing that broke everything. That was when studios stopped like giving a lot of. They wouldn't finance his projects. He was no longer being considered for major roles, and that's when he made the Passion of the Christ that he financed himself, because nobody really wanted to give him a job making movies or being in them anymore. In addition,
that movie was okay. I didn't hate that movie.
I didn't think it was great, but I'm saying that was a symptom of how he couldn't get things financed in Hollywood anymore after that incident. But yeah, I remember when that broke, and it was like, that was the news everywhere. Who knows what else was going on in the world? But Mel Gibson getting arrested for drunk driving and trying to pick a fight with the lady cop did not go over well. And I think he also drunkenly blurted out some other anti-Semitic things that people were like, "Oh, that's what you're like? Oh, you got less sexy all of a sudden. That's unfortunate." Liam Neeson was a choice that made sense to me when you mentioned that. I'm like, Liam Neeson is up for any movie that is like by an Irish director. Like if you're an Irish director making a movie, you're like, is Liam Neeson available? I'm sure we have an old man role or something suitable for him, but he should be in this.
Get him in.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yep.
Who knows how that'll go? Because he said he's retired now, right?
Liam Neeson?
No. Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, that's what he claimed. I mean, a lot of them they say that. I mean, I do think, it's like he's won like 3 Oscars. I think he could give someone else a chance, I think. Anywho, please check out In the Name of the Father. This one, unfortunately, is only available to rent. So sorry about that.
I know, we tried, but we did discover today a couple other things we thought would be rentals are going to be streaming on a platform you probably have later this month. So it'll even out.
Trying to balance it out. Yeah, please look at our Patreon if you're interested. Please look at our merchandising. Go on Redbubble and either search for my name or the Book Club for Movies, and things will pop up. Yeah, tomorrow we are talking about a very current Irish actress, Saoirse Ronan, who is so young and has already been nominated like a billion times.
Love her.
Well-deserved nominations. We will be discussing her and the movie Brooklyn, one of her films she was nominated for. Yeah, hope everyone enjoys In the Name of the Father, again available to rent. Join us tomorrow as we discuss it, and then moving on to Saoirse Ronan. Luke is excited.
Yay!
Yeah. See you guys tomorrow. Everyone stay safe out there, and